Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 62 of Humanity Rising. Every day since the 22nd of May, Ubiquity University and over 300 organizations from all over the world have come together to convene a 2-hour live broadcast, an open space, so that people from literally all over can share their experiences, their hopes, their fears, their anxieties, what it's like navigating through this extraordinary pandemic. It's an unprecedented global event, as you all know, where virtually everyone everywhere is undergoing the same experience, and therefore we're all in the same conversation. So we thought, why don't we enter this conversation and make it possible for people the world over to engage in strategic discussions about how we enhance our strategic effectiveness. All the major indicators are getting worse, not better, at the center of which is runaway climate change. So the question of how people of goodwill that are working tirelessly for a better world can enhance their capacity to make a difference may be the most important question in the world right now. And that's the fundamental reason why Humanity Rising has been convened. An integral aspect of that is new mindsets. How do we change consciousness? The extraordinary paradox and irony, in fact, tragedy of our situation is that the solutions are here. Many of them have been around for decades. But because we don't have the consciousness, they're not being implemented. So how do we change consciousness? And then how do we make sure that the solutions that can solve our problems are actually implemented not only locally, but in a way that can scale globally? Because the challenges that are confronting us are global in scope. And over the last 62 days, we've heard just about from everyone. And the amount of goodness that's in the world, the amount of creative intelligence and compassion and ingenuity that's out there, my friends, is just staggering. It's just each day as I've been convening, I've gotten more and more optimistic that we have actually a bigger critical mass than we think we do from reading the newspapers and watching the news. And one of the most consistent themes since we initiated Humanity Rising has been the theme of grounding ourselves in the awareness that humanity is part of a living organism called Earth, and that we are intelligent, we are communicative, we are compassionate, we're resilient, because the Earth is. That is probably the most concise statement I can think of to describe the Copernican revolution that needs to happen in our day as humanity takes this journey from thinking that we're separate from nature to coming to understand that we are nature. And I would invite everybody on this call today, as we listen and as we speak, that we're not individuals speaking. We're the Earth speaking. We're nature speaking through us, because we are nature. We are Earth. We are the environment. And I say this because that is at the heart of the transpersonal vision that we're going to hear today. We're not only not isolated individuals, having our own anxieties and neuroses and depressions and issues that we've got to deal with. But we're caught up in transgenerational trauma, down the generations. We're caught up in entire countries, like what's happening in the United States right now. The entire country is in an upsurge of a collective spasm that's affecting every single individual in the United States and reverberates around the world. We're in a larger ecosystem where the micro and the macro are interpenetrating one another in subtle but powerful ways. The program today is being convened by EUROTAS, the European Integral Transpersonal Organization. And so we have a group of people that know a lot about the transpersonal and the integral. And that, to my mind, is probably the most optimal framework for understanding human reality within the context of the larger eco-field of Gaia. So I'm just delighted today to introduce a good friend, Bernadette Blin, who's a psychotherapist in Paris, has a thriving practice there. She's also the immediate past president of EUROTAS, the 2019 president of EUROTAS. And she and I have been working on this program for some time now. So Bernadette, I'll turn the program over to you with deep thanks for everything you've done to convene this panel. We're all looking forward to the presentation.
Okay, Jim. Thank you. Thank you very much for your introduction. And actually, you spoke so well about the transpersonal that I don't know what you said is really at the core of what is the transpersonal. But we are going to add some thing and some ideas to nourish this beautiful event and these beautiful sessions that you invite every day for more than 2 months now. So it's really a privilege for me and for us to be with you today. And we think that this is very important to contribute to rise a new humanity. And the transpersonal community has really a role to play in the transformation of the world, because the transpersonal vision is linked to this new emerging paradigm. So I would like first to introduce a little bit EUROTAS so that people can know about it. So EUROTAS is a European Transpersonal Association. And today we will be 7 speakers, so we will have not much time, each one of us, to say 1 or 2 main ideas we have in our heart and mind at the moment. So EUROTAS has been created in 1984, but today we have around 32 organizational members, which are our association or training institute. 9 of these institutes are accredited training institute, which provide a high qualified curriculum for transpersonal psychotherapists. And we have also individual members and about 150 professional members who are all certified transpersonal psychotherapists or researchers. So EUROTAS is based in Europe, and my friends and colleagues today are from different countries. We have people from Italy, from Spain, from Germany, from Estonia, from Latvia, and from France. but the influence of EUROTAS and the network and our actions and projects are much wider than only European, because we have also organizational members in Asia, Africa, America, and also professional members. So we are very active, passionate, and ambitious about how we can bring the transpersonal vision to a larger audience, so that we can, as you said, Jim, make a difference and change something in the world today. So we are active in several departments, domains, which can be like, which we have education, psychotherapy, coaching, art, indigenous wisdom, research and publication. And we also have a journal, which is the Integral Transpersonal Journal. So if you want to know more about EUROTAS, of course, you can go and visit the website. You said something very important, Jim, in your introduction, when you said, how do we change consciousness? We have lots of tools and we know sometimes what to do, but we need to change our consciousness. And this is exactly what transpersonal is about. It's about understanding that we are a conscious being, and as conscious being, we are not separated being, but we are one organism, as you said. So, and when to talk about the topic of today, which is transpersonal contribution to human evolution, especially in this time of crisis, what does that mean? And as we don't have much time, I will just mention some points which are crucial for me today. When we hear the word transpersonal, it opens to the idea that there is something beyond the personal. The transpersonal understanding started in psychology and psychotherapy 50 years ago, offering a new vision of what is a human being. The psyche is not limited to as an ego psyche. We are not these personal identities who struggle for life and try to solve problems in an ego-based world. We are not separated beings. We are all interconnected and spiritual beings. As Teilhard de Chardin, the French philosopher, said, we are spiritual beings living a human experience or human incarnation, but at the core, we are spiritual beings. And this is why we are all involved in the same story. Today, this pandemic comes and brings crucial questions and reassessments we have to face. Not only the pandemic, of course, there is a whole crisis with climate change, global warming, etc., etc. We all know about that. So, as many of your guests mentioned already, Jim, it may become an opportunity because we all know that the old model will not be able to survive. And now, today, we have no choice. We have to face our future with open eyes. So, what is that transpersonal can bring to this situation? The first point, which is obvious and important, is that we have to change the narration, the story. In the old system, when there is a problem like the virus, we think in terms of enemy, of fighting, of destroying. This is a story of war. This story is the predominant story of our culture. And this story is what brought humanity to a form of competition, domination, and domestication-based civilization. And in this vision, in order to survive, we have to be the best, the most successful, to get more power, to eliminate what could threaten us. In other words, I would say that in order to be safe, we need to use violence and to defend ourselves or to attack preventively others, not to be attacked by them. A very clear example is how Western societies try to get rid of terrorism, which with a total consensus. Even refugees who are the victims of civil wars in the Middle East are considered as a threat in Western countries. And to me, this is really heartbreaking. What is at the root of this war dynamic? This is fear, and how it drives us to put us in a position of suspicion instead of trust. But as it seems normal and reasonable to live and act like this, it's not questionable for the majority. But we should carefully look at how fear impacts our decisions and reaction. This is part of the old paradigm, old system. So today, the enemy, let's say, is the virus. And all over the world, we try to elaborate military strategies to fight against this so small and invisible enemy. But the truth is that if we succeed to win this war against the COVID-19, another virus will appear and we'll have to engage a new war with no understanding of other possibilities of action and reaction. So the new story should not be about destruction, but about integration. It's about building a new relationship with what is considered as dangerous or threatening. And of course, this requires an internal work to also stop the inner war against certain parts of ourselves, to integrate what we call the shadow. So the transpersonal paradigm shows us we are all one, and the path is not to compete, to fight, but to integrate and to embrace. And this is especially true with everything which is disturbing, everything we would prefer to avoid. To transform the world, we have to start exactly where we are, which is here within ourselves. It is by transforming oneself that one can transform the world and create a more harmonious and more compassionate society. But today, due to the big crisis and challenges we are facing, we also have to think and work at the level of the collective. And I would like to finish by evoking the contribution of a French philosopher, Abdelnour Bidar, because I think it's very relevant and I like his idea very much. So the title of one of his books is Repairing Together the Torn Fabric of the World. The words are important. Each word is important. Repairing together the torn fabric of the world. This is exactly where we are today. He says that the fabric of the world is torn because we are in a state of severe disconnection. And to repair this torn fabric, we have to reconnect, to become what he calls the weavers. We are these weavers. And this reconnection can be done into three main directions. So what are the three links? The first one is rediscovering the link with our deepest self, source of vitality and creative inspiration. This is our link to the spiritual dimension. Second, rediscovering the link with others, sharing equitably and coexisting with tolerance, solidarity, and in peace. And the third one is rediscovering the link with nature, which awakens us to the force of life and symbiosis. Our priority then becomes care for the future of our common home and the commitment to ecology and sustainable development. And all together, they form what he called the triple link. It shows that a new world is possible when people begin to act where they are, locally, with other people around them. This is a new form of what I would call a soft revolution, where there is no need to put the old system down, but by building new small constructions here and there, then the old system will become obsolete and will crash by itself. And as we are all different with different skills, competencies, and orientations, we may feel more attracted to work in one of these three dimensions. But Bida insists on the first one, the connection to ourselves, which has to be present in the two others, because without the connection with our spiritual dimension, nothing will really work. We have to be connected, to have this vertical connection to the divine within us when we are acting, working with others or in nature or whatever we want to do. This is the main connection, the first one, which should radiate all our actions. He says that the problem of these weavers who act everywhere and often work locally are not really connected to one another and not conscious enough of their power. Actually, it means that the change will not come from the top, imposed from the top, but will start from the basis, from the citizens, where we are locally with other people around us. And once again, my experience during these Humanity Rising daily sessions is that we have been able to discover that there are weavers from all over the world working for the deep transformation of the world in many, many different areas. It's really like a miracle. Now, you know, this is this connection, which he says was a little missing. So you and all together, we are doing a great job. And as transpersonal people, I think we have to present and we are here to bring this new vision of what is an accomplished human being connected to other and to nature, and emphasizing the qualities of the being instead of the compulsive needs of the ego. And thanks to your initiative, Jim, you're helping the weavers, we all are, to connect and create, as you said in your introduction, this critical mass needed to co-create the new paradigm and the new civilization all your presenters, Weaver describes. Thank you. So now I would like to introduce the next speaker, who is Yuri Bishonsky. Yuri, are you here? Yuri is from Estonia. Voilà, okay. Hello, Yuri.
Hello.
I give you the talking stick.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so thank you, Bernadette, for your introduction. One of the important things that I actually see is about the idea of the difference with the individualism and collectivism. In a way, what's happening now, that we are actually under the authority of some kind of central governments. They're actually telling us what to do, how to behave. And it looks to me like somebody is imposing on us totally unrealistic rules. I was traveling recently to Romania to give a seminar. I was sitting on an aeroplane with my breathing compulsory mask, which actually it's proven that they don't actually protect against any bacteria, etc. And I was just breathing my all inner carbon dioxide back into my lungs, which will not make it better. So in a way, all those rules that are imposed on us look totally unrealistic, and we are not in power anymore. We are not in power of our own destiny. So what I'm suggesting here is two different approaches which might be a little bit contradictory. First of all, I suggest total decentralization. That means that each community will be responsible for its own decisions, its own rules, its own laws, and in all set of behaviors. The question for me is not only spiritual, but mainly political. And it's important for me to actually emphasize that it is a political issue. Because if we want to actually create a new world in the post-pandemic area, we need to take some political actions. It is politics, and politics for me is not contradicting spirituality. On the contrary, we need to get involved. We need to get involved what is around us. I hear from some of my colleagues and my friends that I'm not interested, don't listen to the news because it's too depressing, and I don't care what's happening around the world. We need to be fully aware of who is in control, what they're doing to us, and what they're imposing on us, and what is their agenda. This is very important. Political awareness is a very crucial issue. So, in a way, what we're actually doing, we are demonstrating against things, we're demanding our rights, and maybe we should stop demonstrating against, but we actually take responsibility for our own life and create the world that we want to live in. I hear a lot of talking about going back to normal. Going back to normal, what is back in normal is what is created this pandemic before. Because every time we're fighting this enemy, invisible enemy, which is a virus, which is some kind of epidemic, then we find some kind of a solution, medical chemical solution, which is repressing the symptoms, and then there is a new pandemic that is actually mutates from the previous pandemic. We had one pandemic after the other, constantly. So finding a chemical medical solution for it is not for me the answer. We had Spanish flu, we had Moscow virus, we had Mexico pig flu, we had Chinese bird flu, AIDS came from Africa, Ebola came from Africa. Has anybody ever heard of New York virus or Paris virus? Can't we see what is happening here? It's the East, the horrible East, which is constantly affecting us, the Western civilized clean world. It some kind seems to me a political and economical war between the United States and China. So demonstrating against and demanding our rights is not enough. we need to take responsibility. We need to create our own communities which decide on our own way of living, of our economy, our taxes, our budgeting, and our safety. Of course, we need also to have some kind of centralized government. But the main thing is question of taking responsibility. So, in a way, the question of collectivism, it's more an Eastern approach than a Western approach. It's the capitalist system that is created personal achievement, competition, and to be successful, sometimes I need to destroy somebody else to be better than somebody else. We're actually learning in school with those exams how to compete and be the best, how to achieve. We're looking at personal achievement. The personal achievement becomes more important than the collective of our society. So, in my opinion, individualism is a Western idea. It's a cultural phenomena not existing outside the Western world. Collectivism, in my interpretation, embraces, so to say, an Eastern style of life. Throughout all his history, Eastern people lived in communities. Community life is an essential part for our tradition and religion. That means we need to stop looking at civilized societies and primitive societies. Maybe we have to learn something from the old traditions, the old shamans, the old tribal way. We have to move into something new, into something different. Now, I don't have a prescribed solution how we should do it. And I don't want to have one. I want us to create communities, little communities that will discuss among us in a democratic way, brainstorm ideas, respect each other and listen to each other to create some kind of mutuality and not competition. Is actually to let go of the ego. To let go of the ego and start working for the benefit of the greater, bigger good. So in a way, Maslow, when he talks about self-actualizing characteristics, he said the self-actualizers are free from reliance on external authorities or other people. They need to be resourceful and independent. They are relatively independent of culture and environment, relying instead on their own experience and judgment. So, is he encouraging here some kind of Western individualism? But Winnicott, when he talks about the false self, he's actually talking about that we're trying to become something we are not. We are actually starting to copy a foreign culture that has nothing to do with us. Foreign culture that was imposed on us by competition, by money, and sorry to say that, by the American way. And that moment, we actually start to live what is called the false self. We're trying to become something we are not. Mahatma Gandhi said that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. What else Mahatma Gandhi said? That the only devil in this world are those who are running inside our own hearts. And this is when the fight should be. As Bernadette said very right, we've got a new enemy. It's the virus. Before we had terrorism, we always need to create an enemy. We always need to create somebody to fight, somebody that is threatening our life. Because as long as we live in fear, we are so easy to be controlled. It's time to move forward. And to move forward means that after we gain our emotional self-esteem and our relationship, we go to a process of transformation. And after that, the next thing will be internal cohesion, start to make a difference in our own life and the life of others, and then to be in the service of society. How we do is choosing careers today. We're choosing careers according to the money that is going to give us, according to success and status that is giving us. But maybe it's time to ask, what is our mission and passion? What is our spiritual function in this world? What kind of world we want to leave behind us for the next generation? I have a daughter and I'm scared. She's going to go out there. Into what kind of world I'm sending my daughter out? Maybe it's time to think a little bit wider, beyond our ego, beyond our own pocket, beyond our own finances and achievements. We are here to serve our generations. And the more people that we get in our communities and are going to engage, we're going to engage them into our mission of making this world a better place to be, the more chance we stand. And as I see, my 12 minutes are over.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
1 minute to conclude. You have 1 minute to conclude if you want. 1 more minute.
1 minute to conclude. Okay. So what I'm going to conclude is we have individualism and we have collectivism. And in a way, I found a terminology created by somebody called Carmine Gorga. He called it somism. Somism means beyond individualism and collectivism towards a world of peace and justice. And by doing that, okay, we need to find a way. Once again, I don't have the answers. For me, the most important thing now is to ask the questions. We need to find a way of integrating individuality and the collective. So my definition, my personal definition of spirituality is respecting individuality and celebrating mutuality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuri. So now our next speaker will be Pier Luigi Lattuada from Italy. Pier Luigi, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes,
Please.
I am. Thanks to all. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody. Yes, we are so interconnected. We are on the same page, it seems. But yes, some on the chat says, okay, this we know, but the solutions. Okay, the solutions. I think that when we realize that everything is interconnected, we are at the good point, but also start a problem to behave as if everything is interconnected. To behave as everything is interconnected, to us to flow into the confidence, to trust. And of course, when we face the trust, we face also the fear. How to go beyond the fear and how to flow into the trust. This is one of the points. But I think that also transpersonal as a opportunity, offer opportunity to us. Transpersonal, to me, I love the term transpersonal, and to me, transpersonal is integral, and integral is transpersonal. But I love because it's not something new, it's something very old, but in a new way. It's something that comes from all the ancient tradition, but offers a new possibility, a new methodology, a new opportunity for this time, how to go beyond the fear and how to flow into the trust. As Bernadette said, we should change the narration. Yes, if you look to the media all around the world, the rhetoric of the war is dominating. We fight the enemy, we will succeed, we will win, and so and so. And but to pass to a rhetoric of war, from the rhetoric of war to a rhetoric of peace, to pass from the fear, from the code of fear to the code of trust, we need to do something. We know and what to do. First, we should recognize that we can observe ourselves. Of course, this is something not new for most of us. But so, how to behave as if we are able to observe ourselves? So, how to pass from, I say, the world of knowledge to the world of awareness? This is something that is up to us in any moment. Of course, there are a lot of solutions. The history of humanity is full of solutions. We have access to all the wisdom and all the knowledge of the humanity only by one click. So we have the solution. We know the solution. Of course, the problem is to behave as if we know the solution. And this is a process that only we can do, of course. Each of us. Transpersonal vision and transpersonal methodology, to me, create the condition. Don't say to you what to do. Don't give answer to your question, but create the condition to what? To go in that place where the solutions are waiting for you. Because we can read the solution, we can listen to the solution, we can think to the solution. But if you don't go to the place where the solutions are, if you don't dissolve the problem, if we are not the energy to go beyond the mind, to go beyond the code, or to get the peace. We all could, as I said before, we should realize that we are merged into the code of fear and into the rhetoric of war. This is a good point. Then we can know that we have the technology to go in the place where there is the peace and where there is the awareness and where there is the trusting. We should do. And so, having a vision, having an epistemology, that means how I can do this, which are the new maps, as Jim said, and many persons say, we are more ready than we think. Everything is ready to the lip. Everything is ready to live as if we are one, to live as if we are in the world of awareness. Because when we do our meditation, our practice, when I come from the sea. And when I am to the sea with the wind, the waves, the nature, I am in paradise. This is perfect. How to bring this into the world? We already know how to do. We have to work. We have to work to face in any moment, to practice, not just when we stay in our environment safe, but to remember what does it mean to practice, to remember what does it mean that we are spiritual being, that we are able to be aware, that we are able to be free from the, also, I don't remember if Jim or Bernadette spoke about the transgenerational trauma. Yes, this is the we are dreaming, the enchantment we receive in our lives, the Ouroboros, the castle from Campbell. We are still as if we are into the castle, but we are out. To remember this, to be aware in any moment. Yes, we have to realize, we have to have a good practice, a good methodology, but also we need maps. We have to change our mental maps. This is, for this to me, transpersonal is important. I could give for the humanity something new, old and new, because it's able to offer an epistemology, means how can I do what I do? How can I say what I say? Having maps of the territory help us to walk the territory. Of course, the maps are not the territory, but when I know where I am, I can manage the place where I am. I can master my experience. So offering maps to pass from the world of knowledge, from the rhetoric of war, from the dual mind to the unitive mind, to the awareness, to the code of trusting. This is another gift, another offer that transpersonal vision and transpersonal methodology can offer to us. Another point, again, as Jim said at the beginning, my fear, my anxiety, the virus and everything is not just the virus, it's not just my anxiety, it's not just my pain, it's something archetypal. To understand the archetypal vision that we can do this going beyond the mind again. Opening our mind and going beyond the first attention, going beyond what appears on the stage, we can go beyond the veil, beyond the stage and see the archetype at work. When we get this, when we get the vision of the archetype, we can remember the cave of Plato. We have the vision of the sun outside of the cave. It's easier to take the sun. It's easier to be aware when we have the right map. So archetype is another gift that transpersonal could offer. To see the world not just in a literal way, in an ordinary way. The facts are not only the fact, are the fact plus the archetype behind. When I get the archetype, I enter in a powerful space that helps me to master integrally my experience and integrally the experience of me and the other. And also, I can get the unity between me and the other. I can get the field because everything is interconnected. What does it mean? My fear is interconnected with what? my anxiety is interconnected with what? Me, you, and the fair are one, are not two. And getting the unity from me and you, getting the field around me and you, this is something that transpersonal vision could give to us.
If you can conclude, Pier Luigi.
Yes, working with the field of archetypes and the mastering state of consciousness, having a map that show us, okay, you can also not only be aware, but we can also become the force. We can also become your anxiety. We can also become your problem and go ahead another step. I can think, I can watch my thoughts. I can realize that the observation is watching my soul, the essence, the self. We are one. We are the self. Thank you.
Thank you, Pier Luigi. Thank you. So now our next speaker is Magda Solé and Charme Mestres from Catalonia and Spain, from Barcelona, which is both Catalonian and Spanish. Okay, so Magda, Charme, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bernadette. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your words, Jim and Bernadette. I absolutely agree with Jure, but maybe not absolutely with Bernadette, but thank you. With many things, I am agree. After that, my name is Magda, is not Magna. I like very much to be Magna and magnanimous, but my name is Magda, Magdalene.
And today is
yes,
Santa Magdalene.
Yes, and today is a very special day.
Yeah.
And here you have Jaume, Jaume
Yes.
James Mestres.
With pleasure. Transpersonal forever.
Yes. First of all, I want to say hello to Raquel. Hello, Raquel. Nice to see you again. I absolutely agree. You talk about integral and transpersonal, and you say, "Oh no, transpersonal is only a movement." You said integral is a movement. It's not the same than integral, of course. Transpersonals pretend, but it is not so. Transpersonal is a movement, a lens to see the reality, and a state of consciousness. I don't know, but maybe yes, no? But it's not an integral theory. Of course, it's not an integral theory. I agree, absolutely. It's another kind, it's another group of theories. That's my opinion, of course. But we are agree, always we are agree with Raquel. But thank you to be present. After that, we want to talk today about the Odysseus. The Odysseus is a way to tell, it's a metaphor, it's a journey, it's a way to talk about the transpersonal experience. We can see this pandemic, this current pandemic as Odysseus. That's why we choose this topic or this title, no? The Odyssey is also, for me, for us, having working together, is also a labyrinth, a transpersonal growth. A labyrinth because it do not walk in a single space-time direction, but move forward and backward and around. Suddenly, the labyrinth came to our lives. We had so lucky to learn about the best people in the world about labyrinths. We invite, first of all, Ingrida Indane to Barcelona, and Ludmila Scortescu. Ingrida Indane is present, is here, is in our board, and Ludmila is not here, but I really want to thank both of them because they teach to us about labyrinths.
Importance of labyrinths.
In labyrinths, Ingrida have a very nice work, labyrinths in nature, and I saw many pictures, and I know this work. We have been learning also from other teachers, from States, from California, from the CIS, the Marta Grau, and Jorge Ferrer, of course. And we have learned also with Marina Bielukova from Moscow. He have been invited. He have to come last June to our institute for teaching labyrinths, and that will happen in the future. We don't know. We never know when that will happen.
And also from Sergei Strekolov.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Okay, then the Odysseus is a labyrinth. It's a kind of labyrinth. Is the labyrinth that remember me the pandemic. The path begins in the past, in the mythical roots of the planet, in the mythical ancestors' place, and the search and brought us to the present, where the role that these histories play is every day in our lives. We can see our own Odysseus in our life every day. We don't need a pandemic. We don't need a special thing for living that. That remember me also, for example, a crisis of spiritual emergency. That remember me that happened in the middle age, in the half life of people. That remember me any kind of crisis, the vital crisis, economical, health crisis. And Odysseus, you know is the name, is the Greek name of Ulysses. Ulysses is the Latin name, is the Roman, is the Romanization, is the name in Roman. And he is our hero. Is our hero that is trying to come back to his house, to Ithaca. Ithaca, he will spend 10 years for coming back. 10 years doing around. He will find several etaps, several phases. He will, that remembers us many maps, many different maps. We can see, for example, in the Euro journey of Campbell, very good. And that remembers me another member of our board who have been working in this field, but not with Campbell, with Vladimir Prop, and is our Vladimir Maykov from Moscow also. He have been working, and he have a very nice methodological and epistemological way to work with this EUROTAS. And which whom I really want to learn, I really want to collaborate and contribute, or I don't know, we will do something. I'm sure. That remember me also very much the labyrinth of Chartres, where we had an excellent, phenomenal, high level masterclass from Jim Garrison.
From Jim. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We were there with Marina Belkorova, another expert in labyrinths, and a very loved Jesuit came in from Catalonia, Jaume Patuel, and a big expert in Chartres. We had we have been gift for the most experts. It has been really a big thank you very much. Thank you very much. I won't forget this experience forever. we have many labyrinths. We have a very nice labyrinth in Barcelona, and many caminos, many ways. That we have the Camino de Santiago. Santiago, Jaume.
St. James.
His name is Santiago. It will happen in 3 days. The 25. The 25 is Santiago Day. The path of Santiago is another labyrinth. Is another arrow journey, where you can find each part of the journey. In each town, in each little point, you can find message, and you can feel a real and deep transformation from yourself. The Odyssey is a deep transformation, is a transpersonal transformation, is a way to find ourselves. Cavafis.
Cavafis is a poet I have read when I was young, when I was 16. And then it's a poet who describes very well the journey, the life journey, and transpersonal things. As you set out from Ithaca, hope your road is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. Lace Trigonians and Cyclops, angry Poseidon, don't be afraid of them. You will never find things like that on your way. As long as you keep your thoughts raised, high, as long as a rare excitement stir your spirit and your body, Laestrygonian, Cyclops, wild Poseidon, you won't encounter them unless you bring them along inside your soul, unless your soul sets them up in front of you. We had immersed deeply in all that traditions. It was the return of the roots. We traveled during all those years, and we learned about shamans in Siberia, in Central Asia, in Mexico. That is transpersonal. Our roots, our ancestors, shamans. We dive in completely and began to train in these disciplines.
One more minute to conclude.
Okay, thank you, Bernadette.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Yes. The conclusion is that the Odysseus is a kind of Imago Mundi. Imago Mundi, it's a Jungian word. It's a way to see the world. It's a map.
Yeah, that contribution
is a
personal contribution.
And we are creating a new training where we will work in this way.
Yeah.
We will do each student will cross all these paths of the journey. Thank you also to Yuri because he teach us very much, and you have your group of fans in Barcelona.
Yeah, they are asking when will come Jure to Barcelona.
Yes.
Always. Yeah.
And thank you very much for listening us.
Thank you to all of you.
See you later.
Okay, Magda and Shama, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. And we now all want to go and experiment the labyrinths everywhere in the world.
Thank you.
So now we are moving from the Catalonian accent to the Latvian accent. And I will give the talking stick to Ingrida Indane. So Ingrida, please, this is your time.
Hello from Riga, from Latvia. It's such an honor to be here and to share with you some of my thoughts. And thank you very much for the previous speakers. And thank you, Magda, for mentioning labyrinth. It is really one of my passions. But just now I'm going to share my thoughts with you a little bit about unity in diversity. We all are here. We are people from very different countries, different continents, and we all are united not only by internet, but also by our deepest interest in spirituality, also in transpersonal psychology, and of course, interest in humanity rising in the whole world. The fact that we are so different makes life colorful and more interesting, but the diversity challenges us as well. We live in the century when, for the first time, lots of people declare that they are spiritual, as though they do not belong to any church or to any religion. And this is the first century in the world history. But actually, what is that what unites people most often? Here we could mention such phenomena as death, fights for freedom, crisis, also pandemics now. And what kinds of unity can we distinguish first when we think about our diverse world? We already mentioned the unity inside ourselves. Then comes unity in family, unity in our teamwork, unity of the people living in one country, unity with all the living beings, and finally, unity with nature, interconnectedness, interdependence. And this time I would like to dwell on the first and the last of these types, that is unity inside ourselves and unity with nature. Using the terminology of the founder of psychosynthesis, Roberto Assagioli, we can perceive our inner world like a theater performance. Imagine what diversity of characters must the actors interpret and perform. Not only our inner child, parent, and adult, but also our inner lover, friend, just a good person, our inner judge, bookkeeper, disciple, skeptic, outsider, warrior, and also angry beast, cute rabbit, and so on and so on. Here we even can mention also our heart and mind, and our body and soul. And each of these actors wants to be a star, and therefore they often are in a disagreement with each other. And that's what we call the inner conflict. In this case, only our inner director can help. And if he is wise enough, he will create a brilliant performance out of all this mess. But to achieve it, the fighting inner actors must make some concessions to each other. They must sacrifice something to renew the unity with others. What does it mean in our real life? We need to develop an inner director in each of us. And it would be a director who is truly intelligent, loving, caring, is in contact with the universal screenwriter or universal wisdom, and who would be able to create unity in all this diversity and lead our life performance to its best success. But what can we say about the unity and diversity in nature? We all know that our Mother Earth and the universal wisdom or God take care of it. But that people have done so much harm to nature, and we must acknowledge it and stop this global parade of consumerism. If people are not going to stop themselves, the higher wisdom will do it. It will stop them anyway, as it happened with the pandemic now. And I really don't think that people are so omnipotent that they could totally destroy the nature. But what they can do, they can destroy themselves. The processes in nature are diverse. You know, scientists have learned that plants can communicate among themselves, take care of each other, that even the smallest particles of matter can communicate, that everything in nature is interconnected and interdependent. However, in nature itself, we can also see a lot of suffering. The stronger survive. The stronger animals subsist on the weaker ones. And it is a law of nature. Otherwise, we would not have such a diversity in nature. It is a law of nature which exists without any human intervention. Millions of animals and other living beings in nature give the most precious they have, their lives, with the aim to support the whole ecosystem. What can we people learn from it? Maybe we can learn to sacrifice. Since so much is being sacrificed by nature to maintain it as a tremendous united diversity, so much is being destroyed by nature itself with the aim to grow and develop with a new capacity. What valuable properties we humans are ready to sacrifice to reach unity in our diversity? Maybe we could sacrifice our ego when it's strong enough. Perhaps we would sacrifice our amenities and leave our comfort zone. And what I mean by that, to leave our transpersonal community for a while, where we feel very good and safe enough, and speak to people who have never heard of transpersonal values, of honoring Mother Earth, about the necessity to gain harmony on our planet, about coherence between heart and mind, about human evolution. Reach your neighbors, your relatives, your colleagues. Perhaps you will not be understood at once. Perhaps somebody will not take you seriously. Perhaps somebody will laugh. And therefore, for a moment, you will have to sacrifice your precious self-confidence. But I think there's no other way. We must speak about it in the larger society. I'm a great traveler myself. I can't imagine my life without traveling around the world, visiting other countries, learning about their culture, traditions, rituals, ceremonies, making friends with people of different skin colors and different religions and beliefs. And so far, I have tried to take any opportunity to leave my country to see the outer world. But only now, when pandemic has stopped me from traveling, I started to think, do I really know all the traditions and rituals of my country, my people? Have I seen all the sacred places in my country? Have I discussed this serious time of transformation with all my family members and friends? If frankly, my answer is no. Perhaps I have to sacrifice my desire to travel now and reach a better soul contact with people and nature around myself here. The whole world is like a single organism made up of many different parts, cells, atoms. It is unity in diversity. We are these cells, and firstly, we are responsible for keeping ourselves healthy, to be able to serve the world, to serve in the best way. And we should start this work in our nearest surroundings, and it will be reflected in the universe. Now, when so many of us are not allowed to leave our countries because of the pandemics, perhaps it's the right time for this kind of actions. Perhaps the situation of pandemic wants to tell us, stay at home now, because just now it is the right time to look around you. What's going on in your homeland? What you can do to spread your transpersonal ideas in your family, your neighborhood, your city. To speak and explain what transpersonal means, what spiritual means, and what we have learned being in our altered states of consciousness. How to feel the world as one, what this oneness really means. I think we must implement these values in our lives, work with ourselves, and then speak about them and set a good example for the people around us. And only then more and more people will join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrida, for this brilliant presentation. And so it was very interesting. So we will look more around us because we have to stay where we are at the moment. Okay, so now it's time for us to go to Germany and meet you, Ingo. Please, okay, please appear. So Ingo Jahrsetz. Ingo was the former president of EUROTAS just before me, and I'm very happy he joined us. So Ingo, please, it's your time.
So thank you very much, Bernadette. Thank you, Jim, and thank you all my friends and colleagues for inviting me to this EUROTAS event here in Ubiquity. It's an honor for me and I feel blessed. You know, it's a wonderful afternoon here in Freiburg in the Black Forest. It's a sunny day and the world seems to be wonderful, you know. It is brilliant. It is blue sky and warm weather and the trees green and everything is very nice. And then it is unbelievable. There is this aggressive, highly infectious virus. It is unbelievable. There is a pandemic. And many people think the only reasonable answer seems to be, how can I protect myself? How can I protect my family? How can I protect my close ones, my country, my. Why do I want to protect myself? Why? Because I'm afraid. The coronavirus discloses that we are all afraid. Almost the whole planet is connected in protectiveness. That means connected in fear. It is an all-encompassing fear. I'm afraid not to be hugged anymore. I'm afraid that I can't leave my house anymore. I'm afraid that I can't see my parents, my friends. I'm afraid that I can't have a party anymore. I'm afraid to lose my money. I'm afraid to lose my job. I'm afraid to become ill. Oh, to get infected and become ill. This is the worst. I'm afraid that they will bring me into a hospital. There, the medical staff is overworked. They won't care for me. There will be too many other infected ones. I'm afraid not to be seen. I'm afraid not to be perceived, not to get enough care. And they won't have enough ventilators for me. I'm afraid to die. Fear is the basic energy of the modern life on many levels. The individual life, many social roles, terrorism, war, everything based on fear. Greed is the other side of fear. The big majority of humankind now is united in anxiety. Not to perceive this anxiety needs strategies of protection and control. And if the control fails, an all-encompassing horror of death may come up, the death wind, which can be perceived shortly before we die. It is the anxiety of existence the philosophers of the 20th century described. What is the answer on fear? The psychological answer on fear is fight, flight, and freezing. Protection is the most spontaneous answer on fear. Protection in form of social distancing masks the search for vaccination and seems to be the only reasonable answer. Some others aggressively are fighting demonstrations against the governmental regulations, persecution theories, religious fundamentalism, the virus as God's punishment, or freezing and the denial of the virus. Then there we can see the greed and envy. The greed not to get enough. A whole population connected in greed, consumerism. Greedy not to have enough party. Greedy not to have enough fun. The virus brings us together as humankind. It is a coming together on the basis of suffering. Yes, the humankind will be able to find together if the suffering is admitted to be felt. Then we'll be suffering together, crying together, sharing our hurts and our pains, caring for each other. During the crisis, I saw many people doing this. Thank you for everybody who does it. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, Magda and Jomi. Thank you, Pier Luigi. Thank you, Ingrida. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, everybody who does it. Others refuse to feel the suffering. Then it is a coming together in fear. Then it is creating splits and it's creating violence. The mainstream of modern cultures is based on existential fear. Science of the Cartesian Newtonian paradigm is based on fear. Mainstream science and mainstream medical science is object related. It experiments with objects. Also, viruses are seen as little objects to be eradicated. But these objects can be seen very differently depending from the view of the observer. It is a big difference if I see the virus as an accidental object intruding and damaging my body, or if I see it as a part of the wholeness of nature, maybe as an expression of the immune system of our planet. The different attitudes and views of the researcher will bring very different results. Of course, it is important to save the life of ill people, but it is not the only option to lock down the world of healthy people. How can we overcome this fear? Many people today become aware that protectiveness is only a good strategy in emergency situations. It is good in a situation of survival. Protectiveness does not cure the problem. It causes, how a British epidemiologist said in the last days, they are causing collateral damages, which are worse than the original threat. So, how can this problem to become resolved? We have to consider to take a risk. Sometimes in these times, you'll feel it when you speak up with a different view. Often you feel very aggressive reactions. So then, are you still prepared to take a risk? At the beginning of this coronavirus epidemic, I did it sometimes, and I felt rejected, and I could understand my parents who were adults in the Nazi society, and I could see how difficult it was for my parents to take a risk to speak up differently. To take a risk requires courage, individually and collectively. It is the courage to face our existential anxiety. It means to give up the attitude of fighting. We really, dear friends, we really have to end our fighting individually, in our relationships, and as humankind as a whole. This is an enormous demand. Giving up our fighting means to accept what is, on the risk to be hurt. It means to accept the threat. It means to accept death. And this acceptance, dear friends, does not mean a depressive reaction on resignation. It is an acceptance of dying before death. Dying before death means that this so-called ego dies with all its wants and don't wants, wishes, demands, desires, rejection, and then this ego steps into the background. Dying before death opens the door to liberation. It is a radical giving up. In these times, many people do this in their own ways. Thank you for all of them who surrender to this path. Ego death in these days is not only an individual thing, something for single sage persons. Ego death is what the planet is going through these times. There is a question that's rarely asked. when you are afraid, you may ask, who is it who is afraid? The answer may be, that's me. That's the ego. But who is the ego? Who is me? Then maybe I'll be answering with all my merits, my social roles, social belongings. But is this who I am? Who is I? Who is the ego? The one who is you appears while you admit a big letting go. The Indian sage Ramana Maharshi was the first one who asked this question. When people asked him for consultation in the many life difficulties, he always said, who is it who has financial problems? Who is it who has a relationship problem? And so on. The question, who am I? Can I continue a little bit more?
Okay, just for the conclusion, you have 1 more minute.
The question, who am I, is the most confrontative question which can be asked. It has something disturbing and also daring to ask these questions. Everybody in the world can ask this question. It's very simple, and it confronts us with the core of our existence. Asking this question on and on is called the process of self-inquiry. Who am I? Who am I beyond my social roles, my merits, my family? Who am I beyond time and space? Maybe some people who are listening to this may ask this question also. Who are you? Amazingly, you will discover something crucial. When you leave everything behind you, social roles, family, your name, all your attachments, the attachment to your body, a wide space will open up, a boundless space. It is not a something, it is not an object, it does not have a form, it is beyond time and space. It does not change, it does not leave you, it is eternal. And it is unspeakable. It is the sacred secret, it is yourself. Who am I? I'm aware of this. There is an awareness that you are aware of yourself. And with this comes a big power, a big energy. It's a creative energy because it ends the separation. And when separation ceases, the heart opens. There is a compassion and love. Fear transforms into love. And this is who you are. This knowledge is highly infectious. An immense creativity, a new world of understanding, respect and compassion comes up, created by infectious, loving awareness of who humankind becomes aware of itself and dissolves into humanness.
Okay, Ingo.
Yeah, 1 sentence. This is a contribution of the virus, an unbelievable step of evolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ingo. Thank you. Okay, so we will stay in Spain. Sorry, in Germany now with Regina. Regina, you will be our last speaker today, and then we will have very few time for something more collective. So please, Regina, it's now for you.
Thank you very much, and hello to everybody from Amsterdam, Netherlands. I'm in Amsterdam at the moment. Thank you so much, Jim, for the invitation for all of us, and for the amazing work that you're able to put on here in Humanity Rising Summit. I'm really sure that so many people come together who would not come together otherwise if that platform would be not installed now. And also thank you to all my speakers before me from the EUROTAS board, including Ingo as past president. I was impressed how all the talks are really coming together like pieces of a puzzle, or how Bernadette said in the beginning, we are all weavers and we are all weaving our contributions together in, I think, evocative and creative ways. What I want to bring to the table is my expertise, long-standing work in clinical traumatology, and also integrating indigenous approaches, transpersonal approaches, and psychedelic sign approaches to healing trauma and post-traumatic growth. So this is kind of my title, my overarching title for this little short contribution today. Jim also mentioned the importance that we need to look in the pandemic, especially also from the level of transgenerational trauma, but also, of course, the potential for post-traumatic growth. So what I want to bring to the table, on the one hand, what I see, I was very much closely analyzing worldwide movements during the pandemic from a health professional standpoint, and of course, how we are able to treat patients, and analyzing also cases existing through the pandemic. I was involved into two global emergency hotlines, and to collect data on what is going on, what are the shifts that we were seeing in the first wave of the pandemic. And the data that I saw was, on the one hand, that a lot of mental health emergency crises were emerging, like severe states of fear, of anxiety, of course, increasing numbers of depression, suicidal rates were going up very highly. Psychotic episodes were going up very highly. And on the other hand, on a global scale, domestic violence is a really big issue. So I think we really need to look very clearly, also very detailed, when we talk about pandemic. It's not only about the fear of getting sick or how we could get treatment in the hospitals and so forth, but it's really also, what about the families? What about the significant others, our beloved ones in family situations? So I was very much touched also by seeing these numbers of domestic violence increasing very much. And especially also, I'm specialized in working with child protection and trauma in an international network. And what we saw is really like children running away from homes, children breaking down and getting hospitalized with mental health breakdowns. That was really, really hitting my heart. And
Regina, this is Rick. Would you turn your video off, because you're freezing quite a bit? Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you, Jim, for mentioning that. So this is one level that I really want to raise awareness, that we really need to look on a much more complex individual and collective level, and that we need to come together in new ways, really looking much more on a local level. What can I do in my neighborhood? How can we help each other when the hospitals have no beds anymore, and so forth. Yeah. So what we always say in our transpersonal conferences and movements, that we need to think global but act local. I feel this is really what I feel we all experienced on a global scale now in the time of the first wave of the pandemic. Or if we have nothing to go shopping, if we have not the utensils that we are used to use, and so forth. So I felt that was really like a huge wake-up call for all of us on a global scale. And what I want to emphasize further, still, when we look from the treatment of trauma, we are still only looking at symptoms treatment. So even if we expand the very mainstream clinical model of treating trauma, which is only focused on the individual, sometimes on the systemic family perspective, but very rarely even on the collective level, which some colleagues of mine mentioned here, we cannot heal trauma. We are just only looking at some symptoms. So what I also saw in the pandemic crisis and looking for treatments, we are only looking at symptoms. And if the coronavirus is gone, then whatever else can and will emerge. And so I want to bring in a little story from my own experience, which was my biggest teacher so far in my trauma work, when I survived the Asian tsunami 2004 in Thailand. And the biggest teaching for me, how I was confronted with nature, because I had a full-blown near-death experience underwater. I believed I will die. I gave up my life. And like a miracle, like a striking through my body went, and like a miracle, I was thrown back onto land. And in this moment, I understood, I I felt I was entirely connected with nature. It was not only an experience of oneness, it was an experience of initiation into all the elements of nature, and I would say of Mother Earth. To me, it felt like as if Mother Earth had reached out in a very fierce and a very radical way to teach me what is life really about. And I would say life is really about interconnectedness, the one core concept in our transpersonal perspective, to really be connected with our human nature, with the elements of nature. And this is how I came back in, let's say, the second life in this lifetime. And after the tsunami, I started specializing in transpersonal indigenous approaches to trauma treatment. And since then, I have much more groundbreaking results. Integrating the bigger picture to me is not only looking at the individual, systemic, and collective, but most importantly, I would say it's the level of nature, that our nature connects with nature as it's meant to be and as it was in the first place. So what I want to bring to the table today is the important work of C.G. Jung, but especially his work on the earth has a soul. He wrote in the 1920s exactly what we are experiencing right now, the global crisis, the pandemic, the climate change, all the natural disasters happening around us. He wrote exactly about that we in modern times, we have come so far, so individualized, that we are completely dissociated our nature from nature, which he calls a dissociative neurosis of modern times. And this is what I really understood through the tsunami. And this is how I now work with trauma patients, but in this bigger picture of reconnecting with nature. And what I understood again in the pandemic, it was like a second teaching for me, or a second teacher, like on a global scale, experiencing this lockdown. I was reminded again of this, like, okay, so what if I boil it down as very much in line what Ingo, the previous speaker, talked about. If I break it down, it's a fear of death. And if I break it down, what we are disconnected from, then I would also totally agree to that we are disconnected from this cycle of life, which is birth, rebirth, and death and dying, and that we are completely disconnected from rites of passages of birthing, rites of passages in the lifespan development, and of course, rites of passages in dying. For example, just one other personal note, when I was locked down, I traveled the world, as many of my colleagues, and teach worldwide. And suddenly, since end of February, I was locked down in Germany in my house for 4 months. I did not travel. That did not happen in 20 years. So there were some strong triggers, and I tried to work through in a therapeutic way, working with myself, and a phenomenological way, working with myself. And I found one trigger in my biography that I was not aware of. When I was 12 years old, my mother got severely cancer, and I was the youngest in the family, and I was the only one at home, and I was caring for her 2 years until she died. In these 2 years, from 12 to 14, I was basically locked in. I went to school and I went home, and I did everything at home for my mother and our big house and our big family. So in this pandemic, in this lockdown, suddenly this was activated. How overwhelming the situation was in my puberty age, in my puberty life. And suddenly I could integrate a part that I could not integrate before. It was about dying. I accompanied my mother 2 years in her dying process. And now in this pandemic, I really felt so grateful and thankful. What a big teacher that was. I always knew that the death, the disease of my mother and the death, the loss of my mother was a big teacher. But in the pandemic, only understood how important, what an extremely deep teacher these 2 years were, where I was locked in at home. And again, I come back to this idea of really finding out who we truly are, who we are as human, what is our human nature, interrelated with nature. And I want to close with another specialization of my work, which is psychedelic science. It's based on all the clinical groundbreaking work in the psychedelic renaissance treating post-traumatic stress disorder. I will not touch on that, but I want to give a I find a very evocative quote from Michael Pollan. I'm sure many people of you know, have read the book, How to Change Your Mind. And I want to just quote one very, very just to the point quote from him. In his book, he describes how he kind of systematically explored psychedelics. I would say with one goal also, how the human nature can connect with nature again. That's why I want to cite it here today. And I selected one quote where he describes one of his ayahuasca experiences in an ayahuasca group experience in Amazon. And I just very, very briefly give one paragraph for that. Using a blindfold, I became aware of the black straps circling my skull, and these morphed into bars. My head was caged in steel. The bars then began to multiply, moving down from my head to encircle my torso and then my legs. I was now trapped head to toe in a black steel cage. I pressed against the bars, but they were unyielding. There was no way out. Panic was building when I noticed the green tip of a vine and the base of the cage. It was growing steadily upward and then turning sinuously to slip out between two of the bars, freeing itself and at the same time reaching toward the light. A plant can't be caged, it seemed. The plant was trying to teach me something, that it was proposing a kind of visual koan for me to unpack. The vine wasn't just escaping the confines of the cage. It was using the structure to improve its situation, climbing higher to gather more light for itself. My plant teacher, as I began to think of the vine, was trying to tell me something. One of the gifts of psychedelics is the way how they reanimate the world in the process of breaking the human monopoly that we moderns take as givens. So with this powerful quote, I want to kind of close my stimulation talk that I really believe from the tsunami experience, from this long-standing work of trauma about learning about dying is a process of reconnecting with nature. And as in indigenous approaches, most of the traditions say there are only two teachers, nature and our experience. So in that way, I want to close and say, okay, this is what I feel is really most important right now, that we move beyond the symptom of this pandemic, or that we move beyond the symptom of any other disasters in the past, present, or future, but that we need to really come to the core or cause of our trauma, which is a dissociation from our nature and nature. And I want to close with a short poem from Rainer Maria Rilke, a very famous German poet. If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise up, rooted like trees. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you all. I'm sorry because we don't have much time, so I don't know exactly how more minutes we have, Jim, but now maybe we can be all on the screen for the last minute so that any one of you, any one of us can add some words if you want.
We only have about 5 minutes left, Bernadette.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So it will be just one word.
Yeah, if we could have one word, that would be a sentence.
Okay. So one word or one sentence.
I enjoyed it so much to be together with you. And thank you very much for all of this. It was a blessing for me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Regina, would you like to say something?
I want to say something possible, please.
Okay, Yuri, go on.
Okay, I was reading the comments and some people have written, there are so many questions, but there are no solutions. From early childhood, we are told how to think, what to do, starting from our parents, then through the so-called educational system. And maybe it's time for me in my teaching, what I do, I teach people to ask questions and then find the answers for themselves. We are relying too much on the answers of others. We are sometimes quoting too much others. Let's learn to ask the questions and let's find our own answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yuri. Pier Luigi? We can't hear you. Nothing to say?
Excuse me. Was great. Thanks to all. To the next. Bye. Bye, Ingo.
Ingrida.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you to Jim, most of all. And I want to say that in this moment, I really feel my heart opened to all of you and to the nature and to everybody. Thank you.
And I would close with a song. I would like to cite an oldie song from Cyndi Lauper, and it's the title, True Colors. And I just want to say, she says, like, I see your true colors shining through. And I think that's really what happened in this panel, and especially in this Humanity Rising Summit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all transpersonal people in the world. Thank you. Thank you to China, to Will. Thank you to all our friends. We are a so wonderful family. And thank you also for thinking in the situation in Spain. Thank you very much.
Okay, my friend. So, Jim, I think we covered most of the time. So, what I really want to say at the last word is that, you know, we really need to be with you in this process, and that you can count on us, on EUROTAS, on this all bunch of people, not only the board, but all the members, because we are working locally, we are working where we are to, you know, really try and transmit this vision in our psychotherapy, in our educational system, and everywhere where we all work. So today, you had some ideas which were close to our heart at this moment. And of course, we have not been able to speak completely about what is the transpersonal vision and movement, but this is what it was tonight. So thank you very much for what you are doing. We are here with you.
Thank you, Bernadette, and thank you, everyone. I think, Ingrida, you called it. It opened all our hearts. I think this session opened my heart and made me feel renewed confidence in the human spirit. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your very dimensionalized contribution. I think a second comment that I would make, just to tease out a common thread through just about all of you, and I think, Regina, you named it very powerfully in your remarks, from Carl Jung. At the root of our problem, when everything else is factored in, is the fact that humanity has cut itself off from nature. And as Jung observed, when you do that, when you cut yourself off from the mother, from who you essentially are, you become susceptible to all kinds of tyrannies and diseases and neuroses, and all kinds of bad things happen. And by the way, this was Carl Jung's basic analysis of what happened to Germany in the 1930s. An entire nation cut themselves off from nature. And then the demagogue takes over. And because you're cut off, you don't have any referent for value, and it saps your strength. And I think if there's one ongoing theme for Humanity Rising, it's how we reconnect ourselves with nature as the context And as the lawgiver, biomimicry now needs to become the new Torah, the new Bible, in every sense of that term. And that's why we're so excited, everyone, with a program, a 7-day program that's starting tomorrow. We are going to be looking at donut economics, regenerative economics, generative economics for 7 days. Something quite extraordinary has happened in the midst of the pandemic. There's been a lot of words. There's been a lot of fear, as Ingo pointed out. But the city of Amsterdam, as a city, the city council voted to embrace donut economics. And Copenhagen is in the process of following suit. And over 400 cities and towns around the world have contacted Amsterdam and Kate Raworth, the economist who wrote the book on donut economics, to say, we want to join too. Imagine a donut just for a moment. The inner circle of the donut is human well-being, not trade, not gross domestic product, not capital accumulation, but human well-being as the central focus of what Amsterdam, as it moves through the pandemic, is going to embrace as the organizing principle of the entire city. And then the outer circle of the donut is nature, natural systems, and natural constraints. And so the central organizing principle of a major world city now, and soon two, is how do you develop human well-being within the context of natural systems? It's an extraordinary, bold decision that is inspiring the world. So on Thursday, we're going to have Kate Raworth, who wrote the book on donut economics from Oxford University, also from Cambridge University, speaking to us. And then on Friday, we're going to be hearing from the city of Amsterdam, the city of Copenhagen, different cities around the world. And then over the next 3 or 4 days beyond that, we're going to be looking at all kinds of the interstices of donut economics, regenerative economics, alternative models of economics. Because in the end, as we all know, we've got to bring in practical solutions that are going to change people's lives on the ground. And Amsterdam has just provided an absolutely inspiring example of what that means in real, concrete economic terms. So thank you, everyone. Thank you again, panel. Bernadette, you're wonderful. All of you, love you all at EUROTAS. And we'll see you tomorrow, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European time, as we always do, for Humanity Rising. Donut economics.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Bye.